The IRS Supreme Court Cases. July 16, 2020 by Anna von Reitz. Today, I have received a most extraordinary document, The History of the IRS in Supreme Court Cases, assembled as a list, from one of my readers. It's a brilliant summation done in an extraordinarily succinct way. The documented history of the IRS in this country goes back to the Civil War, when they were hired as privateers to interrupt and blockade Confederate shipping. They operated as the original pirates of the Caribbean did, offshore, on island bases, from the Outer Banks of North Carolina, eastward to the Bahamas, Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Cuba, around Florida and the Caribbean proper. They were pirates for hire then, and they are pirates for hire now. Their history in Europe has been documented back to the early 1100s, when they were first organized as armed enforcement for the Dominican Order, which was running the Inquisition at the time. The Church of Rome had decreed a special offering known as Peter's Pence, to be collected once a year on April 15, as a percentage of income for the prior year, supposedly to defray the cost of the Crusades in the Holy Land. Does that sound familiar? This particular organization, the Internal Revenue Service, has been engaged in bilking the public to pay for mercenary and holy wars, yet another oxymoron, for a very long time. And yes, the entire apparatus of the Roman Pontiff, the City of Rome, the Romanus Pontifex, the Vatican, the various constructs of the Holy Roman Empire, and the Holy See are very much to blame for all of this, for conceiving this system of oppression in the name of God, for implementing it, for protecting it, for practicing it, and continuing it into the modern era. Why do I particularly blame the Church, especially when the Pope's municipal government ostensibly fought for the Confederacy? Because his tax collectors fought for the North, and his overseer of the Commonwealth, the British King, was following the Pope's instructions to employ the Internal Revenue Service against the South. Internal to what, we should ask? Apparently, the Holy See, which runs the municipal United States theocracy. One is reminded of the advice of 2 Corinthians chapter 11 verses 1 to 15, and the words of St. Paul about those who come in the name of Jesus, or should we properly translate his name as Joshua, but preach a different Jesus and a different gospel, too. A deceptive substitution, not unlike what Eve faced in the garden. But I fear, lest by any means, as the serpent beguiled Eve through his subtlety, so your minds should be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Christ. The Internal Revenue Service employed by the territorial government spells its name out in full, while the IRS employed by the municipal government uses abbreviated alphabet soup code, IRS. They both work for the same master and play both ends against the middle. Subtle, indeed. A deceit known to the players, designed to keep the victims confused throughout, set up so that if the IRS doesn't get you, the Internal Revenue Service will, and neither one of them have the least little bit of authority to address you at all. They are just running a racketeering scheme on your shores under color of law, and claiming that you owe them for this service. And you are doing what? Sitting in your living room, in your lazy-boy recliner thinking, rubbish. That can't be so, but it is the truth, nonetheless, and the longer you sit there not believing it and therefore doing nothing about it, the worse it gets. The privateers operating the offshore blockade against the Confederacy simply came ashore after the Civil War ended and went to work for both sides of the non-existent conflict. I say, non-existent, because both sides were ultimately employed by the same man, Pope Pius IX. All that blood, all that waste, all masterminded and created by one of our own dear federal subcontractors, playing a little two-fisted game with himself at the expense of his allies and employers and parishioners, too. And they were getting ready to do it again. But I digress. Here is the meat of the story, and I cannot take credit for assembling it in this fashion, though I have often enough discussed individual cases, a compilation of all the United States Supreme Court cases that have overturned and exposed the venal nature of the Internal Revenue Service, first presented by the Freedom Law School at its historic hearing on taxation held in Washington, D.C. over a decade ago. 1. Brushaber v. Union Pacific R. Co., 240 U.S., 1.11 1916. 2. Maxwell v. Dow, 176 U.S. 581, 20 S. Court. 448 1900. 3. Texas v. White, 7 Wall, 700, U.S. v. Cathcart, 25 F.Case No. 14756. 4. Stanton v. Baltic Mining Company 240 U.S. 103, 112 1919. 5. Bowers v. Kerbau Empire 271 U.S. 170, 174,174 1926, in re charge to grand jury, 30 F.Case No. 18273 65 CJ Section 2, not known to be overturned. Notice of Dishonor, June 15, 2017 page 6 of 9. 6. Peck v. Lowe 247 U.S. 165, 173 1918. 7. Doyle v. Mitchell Bros 247 U.S. 179,183 1918. 8. Eisner v. Macomber 252 U.S. 179, 183 1918. 9. Evans v. Gore 253 U.S. 245 1920. 10. Flint v. Stone Tracy Co., 220 U.S. 107, 144,151–152, 165, 55 SL ed., 107,419 Sup Ct Rep. 342, Ann Cas., 1912b 1312 1911. 11. Merchants Loan and Trust Co., v. Smietanka, 255 U.S. 509,519 1921. 12. Helvering v. Edison Brothers Stone, 8th CIR 133 F2D 575 1943. 13. Southern Pacific v. Lowe 247 U.S. 330, 335 1918, Art 1, Sec. 8, CL 17 and Art. IV, Sec. 3 CL 2, Art. 1 Sec. 8 CL 17, Art. IV Sec. 3 CL 15 USC 1681H, 28 USC 1333 or 1337, False Claims Act, C 31 USC 3729 7. 14. United States v. MERKSKY 361 U.S. 431, 438 1960. 15. California Bankers Association v. Schultz 419 U.S. 21, 26 1974. 16. Federal Crop Insurance Corp. v. Merrill 332 U.S. 380, 384 1947. 17. Utah Power and Light Co. v. United States 391. 18. United States v. Stewart, 108 Re Floyd Acceptance, 7, Wall 666, Article 1 Sec.2, Art. 1 Sec.9. 19. Knowlton v. Moore, 178 U.S. 41, 47 1900, 19 CFR 351, 102. 20. Butchers Union Co., v. Crescent City Co., 111 U.S. 746, 756 1884. 21. Truex v. Corrigan 257 U.S. 312, 348 1921. 22. Sims v. Abrams 167 Arkansas 557271, Southwest 720, 773 1925. 23. Maya v. State of Nebraska 262 U.S. 390, 399 1923. 24. Slaughterhouse Cases, 16 Wall 36. 25. Butchers Union Co., v. Crescent City Co., 4 Sup Court 652. 26. Vick Wo v. Hopkins 6 Sup Court 1064. 27. Minnesota v. Bearer 10 Sup Court 862. 28. Alligator v. Louisiana 17 Sup Court 427. 29. Lochner v. New York 25 Sup Court 539, 3 Ann Cas 1133. 30. Twining v. New Jersey 29 Sup Court 14. 31. Chicago B&O R.R. v. McGuire 31 Sup Court 259. 32. Truex v. Reich 36 Sup Court 7, LRA 1916D, 545 Ann. Cas. 1917b 283. 33. Adams v. Tanner 37 Sup Court 662 LRA 1917F, 1163, Ann. Saws, 1917d 973. 34. New York Life Inns. Co v Dodge 38 Sup Ct 337, and Saws, 1918e, 593. 35. Tro v Corrigan 42 Sup Ct 124. 36. Adkins v Children's Hospital 43 Sup Ct 394, 67 Ed. April 9, 1923. 37. Wyeth v Cambridge Board of Health 200 Massachusetts 474-86, Northeast 925, 128 Am Street Rep. 43923 LRA NS 147. 38. Murdoch v Commonwealth of Pennsylvania 319 U.S. 105, 113, 63 Sup Ct 875, 87 L. ed. 1298 1943. 39. Tyler et al. Administrators v. United States, 281 U.S. 497, 502 1930. 40. Pollock v. Farmers Loan and Trust Co., 157 U.S. 429, 442, 555, 556, 573, 582, 595 1895. 41. Stratton's Independence, Limited. VHOWBERT 231 U.S. 399, 417 1913. 42. Maine v. Grand Trunk R. Co., 35 L. ed. 994, 3 Inters. Com. Rep. 807, 12 Sup Ct. Rep. as interpreted in Galveston, H&SAR Co., v. Texas, 52 SL ed. 1031, 1037, 28 Sup Ct. Rep. 638. At this time, defense presented one of the arguments provided by Long's Research Foundation studies. They read to the jury the mission statement of the Internal Revenue Service, which states that the income tax relies upon voluntary compliance, and a quote from the head of the Alcohol Tobacco Tax Division of the IRS, which, in essence, showed that the income tax is 100% voluntary, as opposed to the alcohol tax, which is 100% enforced. Notice of Dishonor, June 15, 2017, page 7 of 9. 43. U.S. v. Wittridge 231 U.S. 231 U.S. 144, 147 1913. 44. Taft v. Bowers 278 U.S. 470, 481 1929. 45. Coppage v. State of Kansas 236 U.S.L. 23-24 1915. 46. U.S. v. Constantine 296 U.S. 287 1935, IRS ruled unconstitutional as prohibition had been repealed. In 1965 the United States Supreme Court traced the IRS back to the Civil War, as we did, also, and found no legislative act of Congress lawfully establishing the IRS as a federal agency, department or anything else. For still more juicy tidbits, go to Paul Andrew Mitchell, Federal Witness, website http://supremelaw.org and read over the 31 questions. Please note that no IRS publications carry an Office of Management and Budget form number, meaning that they are admittedly not a U.S. government entity. And finally, the coup de grace, U.S. v. Lloyd R. Long, Federal District Court, Alabama, Case 1-9391, and the famous Shreveport, Louisiana victory in the Tommy Cryer case, in which he successfully maintained that no power to tax a man's time on earth exists. The IRS and the Internal Revenue Service are both operating as foreign privateers on our shores, carrying out an illegal war that actually ended more than 150 years ago, still pillaging and plundering the American people, who were the dupes and victims throughout. So, still sitting in your lazy boy thinking that I am blowing smoke up your butt for fun? Your members of Congress are allowing this to go on, year after year, decade after decade, and you are content to let them represent you? If that's true, and you knowingly allow this, and let your employees condone this, then you are a willing accomplice to their crimes against other Americans. Your inaction makes you a war criminal and a traitor. Finally, we get to the really interesting part. How, my reader wanted to know, is it possible that all these Supreme Court cases and all this evidence exists, and nothing has been done? As neither the IRS nor the Internal Revenue Service are part of the government, see above, the government has no authority to put these organizations out of business or demand change in their operations unless they are clearly operating in a criminal fashion. After nearly 50 Supreme Court cases, the government still isn't convinced that anything untoward has been going on. The House Oversight Subcommittee is responsible, and has done nothing. As I told my reader, it has proven extraordinarily difficult to get Congress, municipal or territorial, to slap the hands of its own bill collectors. Second, all these decisions are in the nature of negative law, proving what isn't true, striking down particular cases and instances, but not establishing positive law that could be used to enforce against the activities of the Internal Revenue Service and the IRS, both. This is one of the limiting aspects of the Supreme Court's authority, which is strictly in the negative, an ability to strike down, but no ability to create law. Meantime, guess who is sitting there like a fat toad in a fly factory, not creating any new law to rein in the activities of the IRS and Internal Revenue Service? All the slime-sucking politicians. That's right, the members of Congress, both territorial and municipal, the same people wearing both hats, glutting themselves either way. Every time I see Nancy Pelosi talking about the poor while she cheats them out of the fruits of their own labors, I experience involuntary retching. Every time I see Mitch McConnell's supercilious face talking about farmers and hometowns, I want to hurl my breakfast. If you are sickened, too, it's time to dust off your employer ID and take action. It's your public duty to put an end to this travesty. I will say it again, take aim and umbrage against these evils, or you are an accomplice to it. Cowards are on the list for destruction in Revelation chapter 21. After all, folks, that's what motivated me. I knew that if I didn't get off my duff and take action to stop the crime, I'd be an accomplice to it. And so will you, if you just sit there, curled up in a fetal position in your recliner, muttering, "She can't be right," in the face of dozens of Supreme Court rulings. Go to www.theamericanstatesassembly.net. Get started now. Links to Anna's articles and resources can be found in the video description box. Thank you for subscribing, liking and sharing. If you enjoy having Anna's latest articles made into videos, please consider making a purchase from Ed's website sacredintuitiveelements.com. Thank you.